Okay, uh, so we will just begin. Welcome everybody to our webinar on your future in community services and social work with Ikon Institute of Australia. This evening we are joined by Natalie Morton, our academics program coordinator for community services and social work. We're also joined by our course advisor, Chris Watling, who will be answering any of your questions that you have over the Q&A. My name is Ross. If you have any questions, guys, feel free to pop them into the Q&A. So we'll just pop on to the next. So Natalie, just welcome.
Thank you.
I was just hoping you could just let us know about the difference between the two courses, just if you were able to give us some information.
Yep. Well, first, I just want to say welcome to our prospective students, and thank you for making some inquiries and being interested in these degrees that we're offering here at Ikon. I'd also just like to acknowledge the elders of our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities and just thank them for their hospitality and for just to recognise that in Australia, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people have always been the traditional owners of this land, and this land always was and always will be Aboriginal land. So just to answer your question, Ross, about the differences between community services and social work. Well, first thing is they're both really very, very interesting degrees because they both are working in human services. So that if anyone is really interested in working with people, both these degrees are fabulous for equipping you to work with people. In terms of community services, it's a degree that really will equip you to work in at the grassroots level, so working in direct sort of situations with clients who are experiencing challenges in their life. So you could be working in a variety of different settings. It could be working in non-government organisations, it could be working in housing, working in disability work, youth services, domestic and family violence. Now, social work also works in those areas, but social work is probably has a kind of a higher level of academic requirements and also is definitely everything that community services is working for, so is social workers. But it's probably you're working more at a kind of a broader perspective. So as social workers, we'll work in hospitals, working in child protection often, working for a lot of government agencies, and but also working at advocacy, lobbying, and looking at what are the sort of structural barriers that people are experiencing and working to sort of create change, not only for the individual but for the community. And also we do a lot of work of actually sort of looking at how unhelpful and oppressive ideas operate in our society and how we can kind of challenge that. So that's some of the differences. So yeah.
Thank you, Natalie. I really appreciate that. So just to speak to that, obviously coming from, let's say if you were looking as a learner coming into either of these courses, how would that be able to make an impact on their lives? How would these courses impact their lives?
Yeah, so this is one of the really wonderful things about both of these courses, is that firstly, it will equip you both of the jobs would be considered vocational degrees. Sorry, both of the courses would be considered vocational degrees, where it's going to take you straight into a position. So you will be employed as a community services worker or a social worker. And that's quite different to some of the more generalist degrees that students sometimes do. For example, an arts degree or a science degree. Even international studies, some of those courses can leave students in a situation where they can't actually get a job in the area that they were hoping to work in because it's quite generic. Whereas for community service and social work, it's actually equipping you to go straight into a job. So that's a real benefit. The other thing that I love to emphasise about both of these courses is not only are you learning about skills and developing knowledge about how to support people, about issues in society, about how the system operates, there is this really strong interpersonal component. And so I often say to people that, at the very least, what you'll get out of a social work and community services degree is personal growth. However, there's a whole lot more that you will gain from participating in this program. But just a point on the personal growth is that in order to work with others, it's really important that we are thinking about ourselves in our ways in which we relate to others. So that requires us, to reflect on things like who we are, what's our background, what are the things that have influenced our life, what are the things that influence our values, how does this influence the kind of ethics that we end up with, in a sense, as we work through what is ethical professional approaches. So it really requires quite a lot of thinking about who we are in order to be able to support and work with others. Because if we don't do that, we can sometimes actually cause damage, because we might be thinking, things like, oh, I can relate to that person and I know exactly how they're feeling, but the reality is we don't know how another person is feeling. But if we recognise who we are and our position in this situation, the way that we work with people, we will do a lot better with our clients and support them in a better way.
Yeah, that makes that.
So there's some of the benefits, but there's many other things that is wonderful about both of these courses. So, but yeah, did you have another question, Ross?
Yeah, I suppose just in terms of community services and the outcomes, I know that you were going into there. What roles, what careers specifically? Are one thing that I've always noticed with community services, that it's such a broad course. So it means that you can go into a really broad spectrum of jobs having completed it. What jobs would you say specifically come up for
when you have a degree in community services? So firstly, there's a whole range of fields of practice. And I think I mentioned that before is, there's sort of lots of different areas in terms of how we support people in our society. So some of the other areas that I didn't mention is even working with refugees and working with asylum seekers, children and families, family support. There's a whole lot of fields of practice, age services, babies, all sort of across the lifespan and in all sort of parts of society. But in terms of the roles that you might end up with, a lot of the work would be things like case management, so supporting people with planning for how they're going to achieve some of the goals that they might have for themselves. It can be sort of developing programs, supporting people to get services, to understand what's happening and provide information, to link them up with other services. Those are the sorts of work that you can do. But more particularly, many students may have experience of community services from a sort of an employment as maybe a support worker. So
Mm.
with a degree in community services, you would obviously be moving out of that disability support work, but more working in the organisational areas. So maybe team leading or managing a service or managing a team in a service. It gives people that kind of skill and knowledge that would equip them to sort of be more in a leadership role within community services.
Mm. Yeah, thank you for answering that, Natalie.
Yeah.
Uh, and then in terms of the social work aspect, I know you mentioned previously that it's a vocational uh, course to go. You go into it after. Could you go a little bit more into that, just so I can get an
Yeah.
understanding?
Yeah, so again, so they're very similar, and we do have some subjects which cross over with community services and social work. So social work in the same way has a certain fields of practice, but as I said before, we talk about it as micro, meso, and macro. So in social work, we're kind of looking at what can we do working, in the micro situation with an individual, but also in the mezzo, which is like the sort of thinking about how kind of the community around that person operates, and then macro being the broader what's happening in society that supports oppression, for example, or supports empowerment, what is happening in the larger society. In terms of social work, you can work across the lifespan from childhood, from babies through to older adults. Um, you you can work within the organisation of service delivery. Social workers can be involved in writing policy, um, supporting communities to grow and develop, advocacy, all those kinds of areas. But one of the things that's often when people go into social work, they're quite interested in supporting individuals in their own personal growth. And so one of the benefits of social work is that you do get a lot of input on counselling, supporting people, so you do get a lot of support to develop your skills in basic counselling and the knowledge that supports that theories, et cetera, et cetera. So what it can do is you can end up working in that kind of face-to-face work with people who are going through personal challenges. So you can end up becoming a therapist as a social worker. And so that's called, so to get that sort of, to be able to do that work, we are entitled to as social workers after we've had some experiences to become a mental health accredited social worker. And what that means is that you can provide therapy to people, and that is probably, with social workers and psychologists are the only people who can do that work under the Australian system of Medicare, which means that people can actually claim money back from the government for what they may have paid for their counselling sort of delivery. So if anyone has ever been to a GP and has got a mental health plan and has been able to get approval for 6 or 12 sessions with a counsellor, the two people that you don't have to pay the full cost for because government subsidises it is a mental health accredited social worker and a psychologist. So that's kind of like a real benefit for social work, because as I said, a lot of people who come into social work are quite interested in doing that sort of work. Yeah. So the other thing about that is it's not just under Medicare. There's some other services as well. For example, veteran affairs or people who are going through pregnancy support. So there's some other schemes within the government that also social workers can provide the counselling support, and the clients are entitled to getting some money back through Medicare. So there's a bit more to it than that.
Perfect. Thank you for answering that.
That's
Uh,
it.
yeah. So if we could just swap to the next slide there, and just to give us a bit of an insight into how us at Icon deliver these courses, and just if you could go into a little bit of an
Yeah,
explanation around that, please.
sure.
Thanks.
So you see at the front, at the top of that list is the Diploma of Community Services. So essentially the Diploma of Community Services is the same as the first year of the Bachelor of Community Services. But what it does is it provides you a pathway. So if you maybe can't get into the Bachelor of Community Services because of maybe your sort of scholarly background or whatever it might be, the Diploma of Community Services is a really good pathway because it just gives you, you're still doing actually the Bachelor of Community Services. And so then you can, if you perform well academically, then you can make the transfer into the Bachelor of Community Services. So the great thing about that is you've already done the first year, so then you only have 2 more years to go. So for anyone who's worried about, getting into a bachelor's degree, that's a really fantastic pathway.
Definitely.
All of our courses, so I'll just say this now, but all of our courses are delivered on campus or blended. So blended is possibly a term you haven't heard of before, but what that means is you can do some online learning, but there is some requirement for you to be on campus for intensive delivery of some subjects. And also for the Bachelor of Community Services, the Bachelor of Social Work and the Masters of Social Work, there are placements that are attached to your degree. And I'll just explain that a little bit more. When I talk about placements, what I'm talking about is you have the opportunity to go to a workplace and actually do what is considered a workplace learning, and you have the opportunity to, under supervision, actually do the job that you're training to do. So that is a really, really wonderful thing because you're actually getting a really hands-on experience of the work. You have someone who's mentoring you, on a fairly regular basis and supporting you with your learning. So you get support from the agency that you're working in, but also you get support from the university. So for the Bachelor of Community Services, that's 2 placements of 400 hours. So that means you do 200 hours at one time. So one trimester essentially takes up that placement. And that happens at the middle of second year and at the end of the third year for the Bachelor of Community Services. So similarly for the Bachelor of Social Work and the Masters of Social Work qualifying, and I will explain the difference between those, but they both require you to do 2 placements of 500 hours. So that does also take up a trimester. It is quite a lot of hours, but it is the requirement by the Australian Association of Social Workers, and no one can get their degree without doing the placements. So that does require a little bit of planning and thinking about in terms of being able to do that. So the Bachelor of Social Work is, that's going to obviously equip you to come out as a social worker. The Masters of Social Work, they're very similar degrees. You'll notice that there's that word that says qualifying. So what that means is you may already have an undergraduate degree in some other area. It could be one of those generalist degrees that I mentioned to you before, arts degree, a science degree, or it could be, international studies or criminology. It could be all sorts of different degrees. So the Masters of, but if you've had that issue, which I mentioned before, which is really hard to get a graduate position, the Master of Social Work then gives you that same ability to go straight into a vocational job. So they're quite similar degrees. The Master's is pitched at a higher level academically because it's based on the assumption that students have already done one undergraduate degree. But then it, as I said, it takes you straight into a position as well. So Bachelor of Social Work is 4 years and the Masters is a 2-year qualifying course. So
great. And I know with Ikon, and maybe you could touch on this a little bit more, but for that work placement, we offer assistance to
Yeah.
any of our learners to finding that work placement?
Definitely. So we employ field placement educators and coordinators who their primary role is to ensure that students get a placement. So they are actually, they spend a lot of time building relationships and networks with organisations, agencies, government departments to get really great placements for our students. So one of the some of the other degrees out there, they require students to get their own placements, but that's not the case in this situation. We will organise that for you. And talk with you about what your area of interest is and what you'd like to do and all of that. So we try and match you to a placement based on your interest area, but also what's available out there in the sector too.
Yeah, perfect. And in terms of if anyone were to be working within the sector already, and they were looking to get their work placement written off if they've already worked within the sector, is there possibility for that as well?
So there is some scope for that, but it really depends upon. So with the Bachelor of Community Services, then there is definitely some scope. For the Bachelor of Social Work and the Masters of Social Work, they really have to demonstrate that they have been doing fairly high level work. So some people may be in that position. So there is a process by which they have to apply for, recognition of the work that they've done. So then that often requires for their supervisors to kind of provide a detailed assessment of the skills. So there is a bit of a process, but it is possible, but only probably for one placement.
Yeah, and that's similar for if there's a recognition of prior learning on any of the units as well that they may have to cover throughout the course as well. Would that be the case?
Yeah, but again, it depends upon the unique situation. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, great. So I know that for social work with the outcomes that is, I believe, one of the top 3 salary for graduates at the moment. Is that correct?
So I believe that this is kind of really interesting and exciting. But we in Australia, social workers, their starting salary. Trying to sort of remember what that word is. Starting salary is it's the 3rd highest of all of the degrees and comes behind medicine and dentistry. So that's pretty fantastic that social workers are paid quite well when you think about it compared to other graduate roles. So that's very enticing, particularly when people have already spent a fair bit of money on their education, to know that they're going into a job that's going to pay reasonably well and then progresses. So, for example, if you start in a hospital role, your pay will always go. I don't know whether you want to know this detail, but the pay always goes up every year for about, I think it's 11 grades. So you're always going to be getting a little bit more salary. And social workers don't tend to be motivated by money, but living in our world, we do need to be able to afford food and rent and have a roof over our heads. So these sorts of things are quite important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I actually just saw that stat there the last day. Perfect. And I know that with the world that we're living in at the moment, everyone is a little bit afraid of if our jobs are going to be taken by AI.
There's some really interesting research actually on AI and social work and community services. So according to this sort of latest research, is that they have suggested that social work is not a career that can be replaced by AI. So because of the human element, and I think that the same goes for community services, because a lot of our work is relational. AI is it's not considered that will replace us. So that's kind of really good news.
Yeah, well, I might be looking at a social work course myself in the future.
Excellent.
Perfect. Great. Well, if we could just move on to the next, or just actually, could we just go back there just to concentrate? There are a couple of intensives I see there as well. Would you be able to just speak to that a little bit, Natalie, please?
So when I mentioned that in the blended delivery or the study mode, as I said, that involves some online learning, but also coming onto campus. And so we talk about it as intensive. So what that means is that in the Bachelor of Social Work, there's 5 by 1 week intensives where students will come onto campus and do some sort of learning face-to-face. And I actually did my master's in that kind of way, and I loved it because I just having those opportunities to come to campus for a week or 2 weeks. In my case, it was 2 lots of 2 weeks. We really connected as a group, and those people that I did my master's with, I still see, and sort of often, so many of them we still collaborate and teach together. So it's having the opportunity to come face to face onto campus is actually just so beneficial, and I think really enhances the learning. So the Bachelor of Social Work is 5 lots of 1 week intensives, and then the Masters is 6 weeks. So the Masters, I think you do 2 weeks. 2 weeks. I'm probably going to stuff this up, so I better not say too much about it. But if you just think 5 weeks, 5 by 1 week intensives for the Bachelor and 6 by 1 week intensives. And it is spread out through over the whole course. And then the other thing that it obviously has to be face-to-face is the placements. So you do have to be sort of on location for those.
Yeah, so they'll be on location, but typically we do look for work placement as close to home as possible for any learners that we're dealing with.
Yeah, we do say that sometimes students may have to travel for up to an hour because that's the reality of our city life. So we do try and match students according to their interest and where they're living, but we can't always guarantee that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much for that, Natalie. If we could just go to the next slide there. Thanks, Luke. And just to speak to the domestic student scholarships. Currently, there are scholarships available for the Masters of Social Work qualifying, which is a 15% reduction. Students who are within Ikon, you are eligible for postgraduate course, obviously once you within 2026. So there is a follow-on if you've already studied with Ikon. Similarly, for the Bachelor of Community Services and Bachelor of Social Work, currently there's a 50% discount.
Wow.
So that's really great to see, especially as you were mentioning, considering that you can come out and get into a role where you'll be able to be on that third highest salary. Also, for all courses across the board, there is a 20% scholarship currently being offered for the alumni. That was what I was speaking to earlier. So if you start off in the course, and I believe you were mentioning it, Natalie, if you start off into the Bachelor of Community Services and wish to swap into our social work course, is that a possibility?
Yes, that's definitely a possibility. But kind of, as long as students are, managing academically, then yes, that's because essentially many of the subjects in the Bachelor of Community Services are also in the Bachelor of Social Work. So there's a fair bit of crossover in some of the subjects.
Okay, Perfect. Also, just to let everyone know that all of our courses are fee help available for any domestic students. So if anyone is looking into a course, there is fee help available there for that. So you wouldn't have to pay $1 up front. Perfect. So if we could just go to the next slide, please, Sue. And I believe we were speaking to this on the flexible delivery modes. If you were able to just go a little bit more into that, Natalie, and how Ikon have provided the courses on
goodness. Okay, so we for on-campus delivery, we have 4 city locations. So that is Brisbane, Melbourne, Sydney, and Adelaide. And for each of the bachelor's degrees, you're doing generally 2 or 3 subjects per trimester. As you may be aware, we organise our academic year into 3 trimesters, which are 11 weeks long. Mm-hmm. And each class is a 3-hour seminar or workshop. So the reason why we do workshops or 3-hour face-to-face workshops is because it's really a lot more fun for students. So rather than sitting through a lecture and then doing a 2-hour tutorial, we sort of, our preference in terms of how we support student learning is to run it as a workshop, and so you have the opportunity for a little bit of input. You might do an activity, have a discussion, have a little bit of input, activity, discussion. And we kind of run our classes like it's a group, to be honest. So we want students to have fun as they're learning. So we run lots of fun activities, use lots of case studies, and try to really bring what's happening outside in the world into the classroom, so you really are learning in a really positive way. As I mentioned before, the blended is where there's a mix of online with the intensive workshops that we also mentioned. With the online learning, we are offering it as generally most of our subjects are going to be, and we're just sort of still developing a lot of this, but they are asynchronous, where there's some interaction online with your learning. So you get some activities to do, reading to do, and there's a discussion between students with some checking in classes or and it varies between the subjects. So some subjects you may be still having like a 1-hour class each week, where you come into class and you online, that is, but you've also got the computer-based learning that you're doing as well. And that each subject is a little bit different how that's organised, but that's generally the idea of the online. And then, as I mentioned before, the in-depth workshops that we were mentioning, that's written there, is really, we're talking about the intensive workshops. So you are there you come in for a week and you might do one subject for a couple of days and another subject for a couple of days. In those, for those subjects, we've chosen subjects which are skills orientated, and this is because it's required by the Australian Association of Social Workers. They're very, very strict. So you're doing lots of skill stuff. So in terms of learning how to run a group, that's done in a kind of intensive workshop. A lot of the interpersonal basic counselling and more exploratory counselling approaches we do in intensives. So they're really the fun stuff, actually, that we do in the intensives. And as I said, there's so much benefit to doing the intensives because you really get to know your peers and you connect and you grow to love each other and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. And I know from my experience on all of the facilities, like there's really great facilities there for the on-campus. And if someone was studying, and I know that it is blended, so you can go from online to in person, and you will have that requirement. There's possibility for those that are predominantly studying online to come into the campus as well if they're requiring any assistance? Would that be the case?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, we have so many other support services for students. We have an amazing student experience team. And, when people are studying, students, whether it's social work, community services, or other things go on in people's lives. And the student experience team is they're so beautiful in that they're really willing to attend to what students need. And so they will do everything they can to support students to work through whether there's barriers that they're experiencing with their learning, or they're confronted with some challenges in their life outside of their study. The student experience workers have worked really hard to support students to find what they need in order to overcome those barriers.
Yeah.
But we also have some great learning resources as well. So obviously coming into university is daunting for people in terms of, can I perform academically to the level that I need and all that sort of stuff. So there's quite a lot of things that are available. There is written materials, there is webinars that students can be involved in, but also there's people that you can kind of relate to support you, to have a look at some assignments that you might have, and all that sort of stuff. Then there's a lot of work that student experience does to just build community amongst the students. So there's always something fun happening on campus. So to be honest, I think being on campus is brilliant because there's cultural days, there's anything that's happening in the world, there's a celebration for it. Halloween, whatever's got, Christmas, Diwali, whatever's going on, there's just wonderful ways of celebrating those kind of sort of special kind of events and days. And it's not just, it could be, an international day. Sometimes the student experience people will organise something for students. So there's some really great study areas as well. So, there's great kitchens. There's always food available somewhere in a machine, or sometimes even in the kitchen there's a few little bits and pieces. So it's actually a really positive experience. There's even in Sydney, we've got a clothing exchange, so people can bring in clothing and take clothing. So, I mean, I just think that's fantastic. I actually brought in some of my dresses because I thought, well, if someone's going for a job interview, then maybe they might like to have a dress that might support them with their job interview. So, there's just lots of, it's really holistic, the way that Ikon approaches supporting students with their education.
Yeah, definitely. And even within the courses that are provided, some of the other courses that are not just within the human resources services courses, they're the type of people that are all sort of going towards helping people at the end of the day. And that's really what I feel Ikon are about, is we're here to help people. And that really comes across, and you can really feel a good energy in the whole campus every time you're around. There's just everyone is always smiling or ready to go for the next day. Perfect. Okay, we'll just swap to the next slide. I suppose we're pretty much alluding to that a little bit there. But from your experience as well, Natalie, what do you feel makes Ikon special other than what you've mentioned?
Look, I think not only are there supports for students, but I have been at Ikon not for a huge amount of time, so I'm fairly new to the organisation, and they employ really nice people, has been my experience. Everyone is really friendly, helpful, and I would hope that this translates into how students experience teachers as well. So I have been handpicking our community services and social work teachers, and I really feel so excited about the beautiful teachers that we have got to support our students. So we're building a beautiful team, but also, you know, in our finance department, in our timetabling, in our student enrollments, the people are really, really nice. And I know that sounds kind of weird, but they really are. So yeah, and we've got an amazing field education team. So I think I mentioned to you that we've got people who are specifically employed to, you know, get placements for community services and social workers, social work students. But there's also like now students may not appreciate this, but to get a student on placement is actually technically really so much work. And there's so much administration in order to get a student from, you know, from kind of the original sort of letting you know about the placement through to successfully completing your placement. And we have a most incredible field placement team who do all the back work in terms of supporting the placement. So all of the organizational stuff, the administration of the placements, they are amazing, really helpful. The systems that their manager has set up is brilliant. And I've worked in field education, excuse me, for other universities. And I think it's amazing, like really, really well organized. So that's another thing that stands out to me.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like also the holistic approach that Ikon have to how they provide all of their courses really does make a big difference. And it's also one thing I've noticed from going around and speaking to some of the students. Quite a lot of them enjoy that smaller class more, like everyone knows each other's name,
Yeah.
and they're all like we're on a first name basis, and it means that you're more tight knit. It means that you're everyone knows that how are you doing today? How's life going? It's really great in that way, and that's what I've noticed from a student that came from a bigger university. They said that they felt lost at times, whereas Ikon is like just that more tight knit of a community, and I feel that
Yeah.
really makes a difference.
I think so too. And I think that it creates the environment for people to be able to make friends for life, to be honest. Um, yeah, I just think, you know, we do really expect that students will be in class, um, particularly in our courses, so social work and community services. There is an expectation of high levels of attendance, but there's real benefits to that because you do actually get to spend time, build relationships, and make friends. So it's really worth it.
Yeah, perfect. Great. So I suppose we'll just go to the next slide here, and we'll just go over some recent reviews that we've had from students that have been experiencing Icon. So this is from Sharon Rowe. I am currently studying at Icon University and my experience has been outstanding. The lecturers are knowledgeable, approachable, and genuine. Well, that's gone on. But yeah, look, they're all there available for you to look at on Google to take a look over the reviews that we have. And I feel like every learner that I've spoken to within Icon, they've had nothing but good things to say about it. Look, obviously, dealing with a variety of personality types, sometimes you can have people that might not work for, and if it doesn't work for you, that's okay. What we would say is we're always happy to help. We're always here to put an arm around you to try and get you to a position where you wish to be. And at the end of the day, that is to get your qualification under your belt. And as you can see from some of the Google reviews there, you see that the support is really there for any students throughout your learning. Yeah, perfect. So we'll just go on to the next slide there, and just give you a bit of an idea of how you can get yourself set up for the course. So it is very straightforward. We do have course advisors here, myself and Chris, who has been answering our question and answers there that have come in. Look, we're always happy and available to give you a call or take a call. Each one we're personalized towards each learner that we're speaking with to assist you to choose an option that fits you best. And at the end of the day, if the course is not right for you, we point you in the direction where you're supposed to go to. We're here to help you to ensure that you get into the position that you wish to be, and to ensure that the motivation is really there to get through the course. Because, as I said, we wish to have people that are going to complete the course, and that makes a big difference. Have you noticed, Natalie, the completion rate of these courses? What would you speak to that?
Well, to be honest, Ross, our courses are fairly new, so
Okay.
it is hard to answer that question. But we will do everything we can to support students to get through.
Okay,
So,
that's within these courses, but across Ikon, I know that.
Yeah, I don't actually know the answer. I'm so sorry, but
that's okay.
Chris
That's all right.
might know that.
Chris might have a bit of an idea on that.
Just one moment to get my camera back on. Okay. Yeah, so I guess the one thing I can say is that a majority of the students who finish, say, a diploma, I would say at least 60% will come back to complete their bachelor degree. And a lot of the students that have just completed the bachelor degree in counselling and psychotherapy have reached out about our Masters of Social Work. Or they're even interested in coming back to do the Masters in Counselling and Psychotherapy. So we have a very high return rate of students coming back to Ikon. We also have a lot of students that sometimes, think the grass may be greener on the other side. They may leave for a little while, but they will come back because obviously we've been running courses in human services for a very long time. We were one of the first providers of arts therapy in Australia. Same with the counselling and psychotherapy courses. So they're very unique courses, and we're certainly very much about your learning experience, not just giving you a piece of paper. It's about you developing as a human being and really experiencing your full potential. So, I can definitely say that Ikon has delivered a lot of courses and a lot of happy students. So I might just bring up that we are sort of nearing the end of time. So Natalie, I'm sure if anyone's got any questions, we'd be happy for you to put them in the chat box. There's that little box at the bottom of the screen. If you go to the Q&A, you can just type them in there and we may have time for a few questions. Back to you, Ross.
Yeah. So just as everyone is typing in their questions there, you may be wishing to get yourself signed up for the course. And the best way to get yourself signed up, if you haven't already done so, just put through an inquiry on our website, and one of our course advisors will reach out to you in the coming days. And it's a really straightforward process to get yourself set up. If you're an Australian citizen, it requires a couple of documents. Alternatively, if you're not an Australian citizen, we're happy to take in those that are PR also. So there's just a couple of documents that are required for the application process. It's really straightforward, and you always have your course advisors here happy to help if you have any questions throughout that. And further on from that, we're happy to pass you on to any admissions.
And just adding to that, Ross, applications were due to close tomorrow. It has just been extended. So you do have a few, obviously get your application in as soon as possible, because sometimes at this stage of the intake, there's a lot of students applying. So we'd recommend you get your application in fairly soon. And as Ross said, you can contact us and we can go through your entry criteria, the application process, and cover any questions you may have.
Okay, perfect. I believe we're finished up there in terms of the questions. We must have just done a great job, Natalie, at answering. I think you did a great job of presenting. So there's no questions required in terms of that. But yeah, happy to take any questions in the future, guys. Always feel free to reach out to us. And thank you again, Natalie. Thank you, Chris. Guys, there is the next step for yourselves if you're looking to get set up for any of those courses.
Beautiful. So I hope to see you guys in class very soon.